Moving on now, agriculture stakeholders in Africa are urging governments on the continent to work with the private sector to build resilient food systems in order to bridge the widening gap in production. Now, they say Africa's agricultural transformation is reversing gains made and progress is being weighed down by increased pressure on resources, exploitive market dynamics, extreme climate, and more recently COVID-19. They also say conventional approaches to agriculture on the continent have not been entirely effective so far. Well, let's discuss this further with Dr. Tilahun Amende. He's the head of Resilience, Climate and Soil Fertility at the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. Great to have you with us on today's show, Dr. Tilahun. Now, of course, let's start by giving us some insight as to why AGRA thinks that models of agriculture, for example, such as agroecology, which of course models itself on traditional farming methods, why have these models not been so effective in helping to boost and protect Africa's smallholder farmers, and of course in helping Africa's agriculture transformation?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me. The concept of agroecology emerged in Europe, where have a very intensive crop and livestock production, where there's excess application of fertilizers, pesticides. Livestock is fed by grain. So really intensive systems which are hurting the environment. Contaminating water, killing the bees in the environment. So, they could go fully organic because there's a huge nutrient pool in the soil. So they can, without intensive application of fertilizers and other things, they can still produce reasonable amount of yield up to 2050 without yield loss, in fact. We in Africa, we are almost growing organic for centuries. And, our systems are mined. We have a very low production and very low biomass. So even if we want to go to, agroecology-based, organic-based systems, we cannot. Because the amount of biomass that is, that can be recycled in the system is so tiny that, if you have a hectare of land, you can only fertilize about 10 to 15% of your land with available biomass. And above all that, we have, a strong competition for biomass because, we rely hugely on, biomass, on, trees for energy, for cooking, for house making. There's a lot of competition. So our systems cannot sustain the required, food demand and the increasing population with the existing, what you call agroecology based. So what we are doing in AGRA is trying to hybridize the agroecology concept with the sustainable intensification concept, whereby, some of these systems are supplemented by external inputs like fertilizers.
Right. So and I just want to get into that. Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Tilahun, because AGRA is advocating for what you call a sustainable farming model, which basically integrates a number of factors. So my question to you is why you believe this model could be the answer to boosting agriculture effectively going forward?
The existing models in Europe, in North America, are targeting mainly, production, productivity. But in Africa, because of climate change, because of land degradation, but also because of low productivity, we have multiple objectives, so the existing systems are not really addressing these multiple objectives and livelihoods of options of farmers. So what we're trying to do is bringing, the best practice from all over the world, from Green Revolution in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, the organic farming systems in Latin America, and then hybridize with our own, because we have peculiar problems in the continent. One is unlike many other, continents, and we have an increasing population. So our farm size is getting smaller and smaller, but also, we are energy poor. So most of our systems are relying on biomass again for cooking, for charcoal making. So, we are deforesting our systems, we are degrading our systems. So all this really needs an African-based homegrown solution. And that is what AGRA is trying to do, trying to bring the different best practices together and advocate for integrated solutions through sustainable farming models.
And you
So
say it
that is really
integrates
why,
local food systems, profitability, use of resources, renewable energy. Tell us how.
yeah, one, African countries and systems are very diverse. So we have about 13 distinct farming systems in the continent, which have peculiar characteristics, peculiar needs, but also we are at different levels of intensification. So some countries, like in the Sahel, you need water. In Congo, you need probably soil fertility management. In the remote highlands of Ethiopia, you need markets. So we have different entry points to facilitate system change in the continent. So we cannot adapt what we have in these industrialized, large-scale farming systems in Africa because of this diversity, because of the degradation we have, the poverty level we have, and also very limited mechanization. We largely are one-ton agriculture. So we really need, a combination of technologies and best practices to work for Africa. And that's really what AGRA trying to achieve, supporting countries, supporting, the continent by developing context-specific solutions.